Welcome, everybody. All right, we're talking about relationship churning. Now, what is that? Well, that's when somebody dates somebody, breaks up, and then dates them again, or gets a divorce and then goes back and gets married or gets back together with that person. And to understand relationship churning, to grasp this concept, it's essential to explore the elements and historical context because relationship churning is not a new phenomenon. It's been observed throughout history in all kinds of different ways. And in the modern days, the implications have amplified its prevalence due to changing social norms and technological advances. The truth is that when somebody commits themselves personally and in a love way, in an emotional way, and they sacrifice themselves to be with someone else, they form some kind of a bond. And when they form that bond and it breaks up, they look for closure. And if there is no closure, and this is where Facebook has become such a dangerous thing in social media, you want to go back and get more closure and more closure and more closure if you didn't get closure. And the deal is that relationship churning is deeply rooted in attachment styles and emotional triggers because individuals with insecure attachment styles are very prone to engage in relationship churning. That's because they know that they never gave everything to the relationship. They never fully committed to the relationship. Also, cognitive dissonance, which means that you don't have open communication or allow for open communication, also plays a role as people struggle to reconcile their conflicting emotions about a relationship. And there's some common patterns of breakup and makeup cycles are characteristic of relationship churning. These cycles often involved emotional highs and lows. These people are distanced. These people have a touch and go relationship with someone. They have happenstances, circumstances that make them feel more intimate. They go through things like a death of a parent or a sibling or somebody close to them. They go through things together, and that's about as close as they ever get. But as people, their relationship to truth and trust really sucks. And that's why relationship churning is so common because guilt and shame is involved in the idea that I broke your heart, I hurt your feelings because I never fully gave to you, and now I'm going to give to you because we belong together, because I've never been close to anybody else, then I'm close with you. And they blow smoke straight up their own butt. And the truth is that they, as a human being, are very distant and have a terrible relationship with trust, and yet they expect open communication from everybody else in their life. These cycles often involved emotional highs and lows, creating emotional roller coasters for those involved. And behavior patterns such as impulsive decisions and unresolved conflicts contribute to that style because usually these people have a lot of conflict in their relationship that they invent due to their own insecurities, due to their own insecurity with themselves. They have a very strong lack of attachment in their life. And so relationship churning comes about because they keep throwing themselves into a relationship. And what happens is people that do relationship churning love to get committed within the first week, weekend, second week, third month, second month. They love to jump into relationships and say, I am so in love with you. And they give everything they can in the first couple of weeks in the honeymoon phase. And then they start to pull away because they realize the person they're with is not quite the fit they thought they were, but they sure had a hell of a good time having sex and or having fun and laughing and doing certain things that they very rarely do. So when they do very rarely do things with someone else, they believe that's love and in love, and they believe that they can have that open communication. But what happens is because of their own insecurities and because they start learning about the other person's history and the other person starts learning about what a shitbag they are, they begin to distance themselves in a relationship. And when they do that, there becomes a lot of mixed signals about trust and truth. And these people that have relationship churning have a terrible relationship with trust and truth. Several factors contribute to relationship churning, however. The lack of effective communication is a primary cause because how can you trust someone who doesn't communicate? A lot of these people are ruminative or they are auditory processors. So, auditory processors yak your head off. They have to speak whatever comes into their brain, no matter if it's a thought or not a thought that has been thought through. They come across as very stupid people. But these ruminatives, they are very careful and they will not communicate their thoughts. They're not supposed to communicate a thought unless they've thought it through. So they keep everything to themselves. So ruminative processors oftentimes are a part of relationship churning because they terrible communicators. They keep everything to themselves. They don't communicate openly. They want open communication. They want deep love. They want all that bond, but they can't give it themselves because they are a turd. And so turds, as ruminative processors, are really hard to live with and hard to be in a relationship with. And so they realize, I never give you everything. And by the fact that they never give you everything, but they want everything from you, they feel guilty. The leading to misunderstandings and unresolved issues also happens because of the communication problems. Because silence is power. If you're going to be a silent person in a relationship, you're leaving the other person to guess what you're thinking. And when they guess what you're thinking, they're going to come to their own conclusions. And believe me, their own conclusions are going to play into their fears and their fantasies and their facts that they believe are true about you. Insecurity, whether due to personal self-esteem issues or perceived threats in a relationship, also plays a huge role in relationship churning. External influences like societal pressure and opinions from friends and family exacerbate the cycle because sometimes you're with somebody and everybody says, oh my God, that's a perfect person. They're the most wonderful person. You are so fortunate to be in the relationship with that person. And yet you're going, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they're okay. But the reason is because you're okay, most likely. The other person might be a very good person, and you probably are not a very good communicator, and you probably are not a good person to be trusting. So the deal is you got to work on yourself. And that's how relationship churning should end. That means that if you're going to be in a relationship, run it all the way to the end by giving it everything you've got. What is everything you've got? It's a commitment. Commitment is what makes love work. Commitment to truth, commitment to the person, commitment to the relationship. If you cannot do commitment, you're going to do a lot of relationship churning. You're going to go back to old boyfriends and girlfriends because you're not good at commitment. And so the deal is people that are mature develop a relationship with commitment. People that are not mature don't develop a very good relationship with commitment. The emotional toll of relationship churning on people is profound. Frequent breakups and reconciliations leads to emotional exhaustion and affects mental health and overall well-being. And self-esteem often suffers, and people may internalize the instability as a personal failure. And the impact of churning on relationships, for the relationship itself, if you're going to keep breaking up and coming back and breaking up and coming back is not going to make you any better. Oh, I've learned. Oh, I'm a better person. No, there are patterns that you have not dealt with. And just because you get back together and you've recommitted to that person and they already know all your games doesn't mean that you're going to stop playing them. Churning can create deep-seated trust issues, and it undermines stability because anytime you're with somebody that you've already broken up with, you both are going, I remember what it's like to be without you, and I remember what it's like to be with you. And when I'm with you, I just want to be without you. And when I'm without you, I want to be with you. And so what happens is these people have a 50-50 commitment. That means half the time they're in and half the time they're out. So they have a great weekend and everything goes well and they have their little intimacy thing and they have a good time and they're all into each other. And then suddenly they go back to work and they start thinking about somebody else and what life would be like without you. And I don't have to put up with all your insecurities, and I don't have to put up with having to text you every single place I go and every single thing I do. And all of a sudden the resentments start to build up, and then I don't want to be with you. And so half the time I don't want to be with you, and half the time I do want to be with you. So people that do relationship churning are half-ass committers. They're not grown up. They're little kids in an adult body trying to do life. And that's the sad truth. If you want adult life, you have to understand commitment, and you have to make commitment, and you have to have integrity, which is to stick to it. Unfortunately, people never get all they can get out of a relationship because they don't commit. For the relationship itself, churning creates deep-seated trust issues. Long-term consequences include decreased likelihood of a healthy, lasting relationship as a cycle of instability erodes and the foundation of trust and mutual respect erodes. And recognizing the signs of churning is crucial for addressing the issue. Frequent breakups, constant arguments, and on and off relationship statuses are clear indicators, especially in social media. Understanding these signs can help people and couples identify the problem and seek solutions. You have developmental life issues if you have not grown up and you do relationship churning. If you're an on and off person, you have an anxious attachment or an avoidant attachment. These are the people that do relationship churning. They want everything on their own terms. They want to make sure the other person is everywhere they're supposed to be, and yet they're never where they're supposed to be. They never hold the other person accountable. They hold the other person accountable for everything they want to do. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad to be with somebody like that, because there's tons of people like that have a terrible relationship with trust and truth. And so they will make you tell the truth if you're with them, but they tell you the half-assed truth. And they don't hold you to the same standard. They hold you to a higher standard than they hold themselves. And when you're with somebody like that, there's a good chance there's going to be a lot of churn in that relationship. The role of social media in relationship churning is huge. It has a huge impact on relationship dynamics, including the churning, because what these people do is they get on their FaceTime and they open their account up to the public, and guess what? People start looking back and going, I wonder what blah, blah, blah is doing, and I wonder where blah, blah, blah is, and I wonder what they're doing and what their life is like. And guess what? Once they start inquiring, they start asking questions, you light back up the idea that, oh, we could be together again. Oh, we've had a lot of life pass. Maybe we've matured more. Maybe this happens. Maybe I'm still attracted. Maybe you're still attracted. And all of a sudden, having a stagnant relationship that you might be in and lighting up what the past might bring you is going to entice you. So social media lights up all kinds of dynamics. Also, your digital footprints, such as old photos and posts, can trigger emotional responses, influences decisions. The pressure to maintain a certain image online also contributes to relationship instability. There's a lot of people in their midlives and in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s even, that post their old photos about themselves and try to make themselves look sexier than they are and try to put themselves out there as the best foot forward, trying to attract some kind of attention. And sometimes that's going to lead you down a path where you're going to get away from what your stability and your relationship and your commitment is. So there's a part of you that believes the grass is greener on the other side, and then there's a part of you that will not make peace with the pasture you're in. If you want to break the cycle of churning, it requires self-awareness and effective communication. People must recognize their patterns and their triggers, and couples should engage in open, honest conversations about their feelings and concerns. Your partner, their responsibility is not to keep you in line. Your responsibility is to keep yourself in line. That means stop putting yourself out there. You are supposed to have self discipline. You are supposed to honor commitments. Here's the deal: people that don't manage their integrity end up in nursing homes by themselves with nobody ever showing up because they could give a rat's ass about you because you cannot be trusted. You're not a person of integrity. You're an old person that loves to give opinions and loves to tell everybody else what to do, but you yourself don't do what you're supposed to be doing. And so the bottom line is people that don't manage their integrity end up alone in life. And people that do relationship churning because of their anxious or their avoidant attachment styles often end up alone in this life, and not even their kids want to have anything to do with them. Trust is the cornerstone of stable relationships. That means that you are going to have faith in each other that you can be trusted. And only people that can have faith in each other that they can be trusted are going to have anything solid in a relationship. Having faith in your partner is a huge dynamic that has to happen on a continuous basis in a relationship. Therefore, if people continue to drop trust issues into their relationship, that means they're flirting with other people, or they're scared somebody is going to have an affair with you, or they're being paranoid or insecure, or they're projecting their own fears onto you. What you're going to find is there's going to be resentment and there's going to be an issue with trust. Because if you attack trust, you are attacking the binder of the book. And if you tear the binder of the book off, all the pages are going to flow everywhere, and you're no longer going to have a story to tell about yourselves. Emotional intelligence is also a big, big part of what it takes to be in a relationship. A lot of people are terrible with emotional intelligence. So they use anger as the way to project their feelings, or they use irritability as a way to project their feelings because they don't have the way to demonstrate frustration. They don't have a way to frustrate to say I'm tired or to be overwhelmed. They just make anger their way of doing everything. And if you're one of these turds that has never evolved your emotional intelligence, there's a good chance that you're not going to be good in a relationship. That means you're probably a anxious person to be attached to, or you're an avoidant attacher. Therefore, relationship churning is going to always be a part of your life because you have to evolve and put words and put feelings to your emotions that you can communicate that are safer than anger, rage, and irritability. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come right back. Welcome back, everybody. All right, we're talking about relationship churning and dealing with exes and then coming back into relationships because we don't have closures. So what we do is we date and then we redate and we redate somebody that we've already dated before. We remarry or we get back with somebody that we've broken up with. And if you examine real life examples of relationship churning, it provides valuable insights. There's a lot of patterns and consequences, and offers lessons on why this stuff happens. Prevention is key to avoiding detrimental effects of relationship churning. So, recognizing early warning signs, taking proactive measures such as relationship education, regular check ins helps maintain a healthy relationship dynamic. Also, rebuilding after relationship churning is critical. Rebuilding a relationship after experiencing churning involves a healing process, but both people need to be a part of that. And what that means is you need to go to marital counseling. You need to go to some relationship counseling together, but you also need to go to counseling on your own so you can figure out what you're bringing into the relationship that's creating the problem. Reestablishing trust is critical. So, how you do that, and I've talked about this in the last segment, is I don't trust you, but I am going to give you faith. I'm going to have faith in you that you can be trusted until I see that you can't be trusted. And so, what's really critical about that is to understand that couples must commit to addressing with each other and themselves, what they can give and what they can't give a relationship. It's very, very important for people to understand that when you have broken trust, it takes a long time to get trust back. And that is a huge factor. As societal norms and technology evolve, the dynamics of relationship churning also changes. Trends and predictions suggest that awareness and education plays a vital role in reducing the churning. Understanding and adapting to changes can help individuals and couples navigate their relationships more effectively so they don't continue to do that. It's very important for us to understand that in psychology and relationship counseling, there's valuable insights that can take place to help people with this pattern. But it is so common, this relationship churning among young adults, especially. Nearly half report churning in present and most recent relationships. The average number of churning episodes is 2.5. Over half who broke up continued sexual relationships. Nearly 9 in 10 people who have sex attempt to reconcile. So, what we have to understand is people don't understand how to get closure in a relationship. And the only way you can get real closure is if you had a completely open, trusting relationship in the first place, where you are, I am in, I will be with you, I am with you, and you are fully committed to each other. When you have that, that's the only time you can know whether or not it's really going to work or not going to work. It is so common in younger relationships because people that are younger have terrible, terrible attachment and terrible relationship skills these days. And what we have to understand is they communicate all the time. So they're talking in the evening, they're talking via text, they're talking via social media. They're talking all the time. And so what they're doing is they're re-engaging and re-promising each other and re-teasing with each other and talking to each other sexually after they've already broken up. So people come back and go away and come back and go away. And what we have to understand is that pattern means that they are reinforcing within themselves that they are not ready for commitment. They are not themselves very good at commitment. And people at a younger life, when they are terrible at commitment and they keep going back to the same person over and over again, they are a high statistic for divorce because they never fully commit. They're half-ass people, half in and half out. Among adults, similar opposite sex and same sex relationships have a high, they have high churn, especially same sex relationships, especially women. Women have a propensity to have more affairs, women on women, than anybody of any pairing of people. They are not loyal. I don't know why, but it's terrible. And the other part of it is men on men often do third party sex, which also leads them down different avenues. Now, people that are couples, monogamy is very difficult, especially in this day and age when you're watching everybody pork everybody else. It's a recreational sport, sex. And when you see everybody enjoying a recreational sport, you want to definitely participate. So the bottom line is a lot of people always feel they're missing out. The grass is greener on the other side. But when you have children, guess what? You're a freaking wrecking ball. You have no business breeding. If you cannot commit, don't breed. Because if you don't know what it's like to be in a relationship and you don't want to fully be in a relationship and you want to be debating a relationship while you're in a debate relationship, stop breeding. You should not be creating children and then putting them here on this planet and giving them the same half-assed love you give the relationship and yourself. What we do know about churning for people is that including after beginning to cohabitate and marry, predictive and psychological distress takes place in their relationships, lower relationship satisfaction because of their lower level of commitment to trust, their lower dedication, and worse is their communication is terrible because people that do relationship churning have a horrible relationship with truth and trust. They like white lies. They like to tell you what they want you to believe. They like to blow smoke straight up your butt. They like social media to represent them as holier than thou when they're holier than crap. And the sad thing is that the more people that are in a relationship that hold other people accountable, well, you need to be loyal to me, or you're always looking for someone else, or you're doing this, or you're doing that. The blamers are oftentimes the ones that are having the imagination to do something different. Usually, when someone is faulting you for having an affair, is because they feel guilty because they're either having one or thinking about it. People are complicated, and you have to understand that people that do relationship churning are oftentimes very unstable people. If you want to be a stable person, you have to have a relationship with integrity. Integrity is what you do when nobody's looking. Integrity is what you do when you're off the radar. Integrity is how you take care of relationships, how you care, how you love. If you want to know what love is important, but trust is more important. Love is a commitment. Trust is a commitment. If you can't make a commitment to love and trust, you have no business being in a relationship. You're just breeding stock like everybody else. Churning is not randomly or equally distributed across a population. Why do people get back together? Well, there's a lot of factors. It's a one-sided breakup. If it's a one-sided breakup, there's a good chance that once that person has already gone off and screwed around with somebody else, and then they got sick of that after they got out of the honeymoon phase and realized that their shit does stink. They go back and try to get closure, and they feel bad about the other person that they left, and oh, you're better than them, and I'm really sorry I did that, and blah blah blah. That's immaturity. Why would you take somebody back that's already gone off and had an affair and done it with somebody else and then want you back? How are they ever going to respect you if you take them back? Come on, wake up. There's billions of people in this planet. Go find somebody that has a better relationship with integrity. Or maybe you should have a better relationship with your own integrity. Why do people get back together? There's also higher intimate self-disclosure. That's what you have to have. If you want to have a relationship, you have to have higher intimate self-disclosure. What is that? Well, that means that I am completely in tune with what your life is like, and I understand your struggles, and I have empathy and compassion for your life and your struggles to the point that I don't want to make your life any worse than what it is. And you have a relationship and an understanding of my struggles and what I go through. And you care about me to the deepest part of my suffering in this life. And when we both care about each other's suffering in this life and we don't want each other to suffer anymore, we have what's called a secure relationship. That is the higher intimate self-disclosure. But people that don't take care of each other's suffering in this life and have empathy for each other's suffering are going to have a hard time having a deeper relationship. There's also people that have uncertainty of why they break up. People get bored in relationships. And guess what? Bored people are boring. So you're both boring and you're both seeking entertainment and you're both going to seek something better to do with your life. There's another thing that breaks people up, and that's midlife crises. When you've compromised and compromised, and you've tried to have the nice house with the nice, wife and the kids and the honeymoons and and the vacations and the holidays at your place. Look at what a great adult I am. Well, by the time you're 40, you realize nobody really gives a rat's ass about who you are or what you are. They don't spend a lot of time thinking about you. You're not as important as you think you are. And once you realize that, you can rewrite your script about who I am and what I am in this life, because I don't have to live apologetically for how people see me. And that's what a midlife crisis is. And the earlier you come to the realization that you're not that important, not everybody stares at you and thinks about you, not even your spouse and your children think about you that much. If you realize that, you will self-actuate. And when you self-actuate, you become more of who you are. You discover your passions and purpose. But at the same time, that means you have to care about another person. And if you want to have a relationship, when you realize that not a lot of people think about you and you actually have a relationship with somebody that cares about your suffering, that cares about what you go through, that is what's going to keep it to stick. But people that don't get to that level of understanding each other's suffering in their midlife crisis are going to find themselves divorced and broke. And their poor kids left without whatever they're going to need to get into their life from you. Structural and situation factors like economic distress, incarceration, parents' relationship history, race and ethnicity. There's all kinds of reasons that people don't get close to each other. If you marry somebody from a different race or a different culture or a different economic perspective, you're probably, and you don't take the time to get to know them and have respect for that perspective, or they don't get to know your perspective or care about where you come from. If you both ignore those things and just say, oh, I want to have this kind of person of this culture and I want to be with that and they'll be just like me. No, that's not going to happen. They come from a different place. And so if you don't have understanding, it's going to be very hard to sustain a relationship. People that don't have respect for money. If you're an immature person and you spend money every time you get it, that's a child. If you're going to be married to a child, you're probably going to be divorced. Being with somebody that has no respect for money means you're with somebody that has no respect for survival. If you with somebody that doesn't care about survival, what is the point? You have to live. Money is life. That's how we survive. And so, oh, I'll always make it. I'll always do this. We'll be fine. If I have to live in a barn, I'll do that. We can live in a person's house. We can live with my parents. We can live with it. If you have one of those idiots that you're married to, these people that think they could get by through life with no means, no income, no responsibility, no taking responsibility for their life, you're not with an adult, you're with a child. And you need to figure out whether you want to spend all your hard-earned money on half of it on them and supporting their stupid lifestyle when you get divorced. And the earlier you get divorced, the better, because as each year passes, they own more and more and more of you until 10 years. And then when you're married 10 years, they own 50% of you. That sucks, guys. Divorce is one of the worst business deals on the planet. Why would you subject yourself to that? Why would you be with some immature idiot that has no accountability for money? That's a child. You're raising a child. What are you doing? Businesses have long used the term churn to denote the loss of customers and clients. And more recently, psychiatrists and psychologists have introduced the concept of relationship churn. And that refers to unstable, on again, off again relationships. When couples break up and then reconcile, sometimes many times in a row, that's churn. And it's more prevalent, obviously, amongst adolescents or young adults or people who never grow up. But because people of all ages experience relationship churn. Churning relationships often inspire intense emotions. And that's because what they do is they oftentimes will anchor back on a relationship that they had in the past where they were with somebody that probably loved them more than they loved themselves. And so what they do is when they don't love themselves, they go back and dedicate themselves to somebody that's been an anchor in their life, but they're not a person that they're deeply in love with because they gave a half-assed commitment and that person had such low self-esteem that they accepted your half-assed commitment. And when you're with someone like that, they become an anchor. There's a lot of people in this life that are they call themselves giver. I'm a giver. If you're going to be a giver, you're an idiot because you're going to attract a narcissist. And givers and narcissists love each other and hate each other. Because if you're a giver, you're going to be with a half-ass committer who's going to do half-ass commitment things and who's going to act like they're holier than thou and they do the greatest things and they're the most dedicated person on the planet and they go to church every Sunday and they're the most important person in their community. No, behind the scenes, they're turds. And you have to be really careful because people that are attracted to pleasers are users, and they usually are users for their own benefit. And so relationship churn oftentimes involves narcissistic behavior because selfish people get in relationships, they use people, then they go away and they go, "Oh, I've learned, I've changed, I have a lot more respect for you now because I don't do that anymore." And then they come and they reel you back in as the giver, and then they use the hell out of you again and burn you even twice. And usually twice as bad too. Relationship turn is poorly studied, but it has a lot of common features. Once again, young adults, 44% have a romantic relationship and then they break up and then they reconcile. That's common. That is very common. Relationship churn also provides challenging things. One partner might think the couple is reconciled after they have sex, even when the other thinks they're still fighting. And so they do this pretend relationship. Oh, we're going on dates now. Oh, we're having sex. But that doesn't mean you're in a relationship. You may think you are, but you're not. If you have terrible communication, you're probably going to be in a relationship that churns because there's going to be a lot of instability. You have to have a relationship with trust to be able to bind a relationship together. That requires open communication. And a lot of people have trouble with that. That's why counseling and marital counseling and relationship counseling is very good at helping. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about relationship churn, and that is dating your ex. People Permanently breaking up with a partner can be really, really difficult. But even when a relationship is irretrievably broken or even abusive, partners may love one another or experience intense infatuation and attraction. So there's some numerous reasons that the cycle of breaking up and getting back together happens. One of them is believing that problems in the relationship will improve or that the breakup may change a partner's behavior. Yes, I can control you by hurting you and breaking up. That's going to convince you to change. Also, a strong sense of investment in the relationship. If you've given everything you could financially to a relationship and nothing about you emotionally and communication wise, you're probably going to want to come back to it because you spent so much money trying to be with that person. Also, another reason is relationship ambivalence. For example, a person might dislike a relationship conflict but feel intense love or trust for their partner. So, you may feel a lot of conflict because your partner holds you accountable for not being trustable and you trust them. You know, if you're going to marry somebody that's trustworthy and you're not trustworthy, you're a piece of crap and you need to grow up and understand that you understand commitment. There's also uncertainty about the future, which also motivates couple to break up and later get back together because they know what it was like to be together. Things were a lot better, things were more stable, but you forgot that you were empty and lonely in the relationship. Why were you empty and lonely? Well, because you did not commit. You did not give emotional intimacy. You did not focus on communication and caring and having openness and sharing your love and appreciating each other and understanding each other's love language. You had a poor relationship with commitment, a sense of family duty. Even if a relationship is unhappy, people may reunite because family obligations and their children. And that's not a good reason. You guys got to realize if you're going to breed and create a family, you're an example of what marriage looks like to your children. Is that really what you want your children to learn? Is the crap that you do to your partner? The fear of being alone is also another reason people get back together. Singlehood can be difficult, especially for someone who's accustomed to being in a relationship. How many more times in this life can you be ghosted by some idiot that you barely know? I mean, people on online treat people as if they're disposable, and it's really sad. And for some people, especially those with separation anxiety or anxious attachment styles, being single can be really scary. Even if a relationship is unhappy, loneliness can trigger reconciliation. So, what is stronger, anger or loneliness? I will tell you it's loneliness. Also, everyone brings life experiences to their relationships, and these experiences color their expectations, their perceptions of what is normal, and their hopes and fears about the relationship. So, a reunion following a breakup is no different. It calls for a new honeymoon phase. However, it can be difficult for couples to separate the baggage from their prior relationship and from the new relationship. And so, it doesn't mean that it's impossible for a relationship to succeed following a breakup, but some people even successfully remarry after a divorce, and they're able to enjoy many years of happy marriage. But that is because they formed a brand new relationship with commitment to themselves, to the relationship, and to their integrity. To increase the odds of success of a second, third time around, it's important to identify what went wrong in the earlier relationship. Well, one of the things that went wrong is you never grew up, and they never grew up. And that is developmentally the milestone that you have to overcome. Also, relationships in which there is abuse, including verbal, sexual, physical, financial, are not safe for either partner. And reuniting without addressing the abuse is a recipe of further abuse. And it may give the abusive partner greater control because you came back. You came back, and that gives them permission to be a turd. You know what? You have to have boundaries. And if you can't have boundaries, and you had an abusive relationship and you keep coming back to it, you've not solved anything. When a partner is abusive to children, reuniting can be traumatic to the kids and harmful to the whole family. So before considering a reunion, each person must weigh the effects of the relationship on their physical and emotional well-being. If you're with an abusive partner and they've treated your kids terribly and you want to go back because you're horny or you're lonely, you got a problem. You need to grow up. Why would you put your kid through that? Why would you make them feel unsafe? How can they develop a sense of security and attachment in this life if you're going to go back into an abusive situation? What is the deal? It's sad, but there's a lot of people in this life that will continue to go back to the cycle of abuse over and over and over again. And what they need to do is look inside their own little brain and their own little body and their own little life and discover what the hell is in me that makes me want to go back to that. Continually repeating old patterns. Every couple has a few fights and repeat themselves. But if a couple continues to fight about the same things circularly over and over and over again, that means they do not resolve their conflicts. And if you can't resolve your conflicts, you can't have confidence or trust because you can never resolve your conflicts. You need to resolve your conflicts, but to do that means your goal is to understand each other's perception of the problem and each other's meaning about the problem. It is not to be right, and it's not for you to align with me. It is about understanding each other. And people that have communication problems in relationships are either focused on being right, at least one of them, or aligning you with me or me with you. That's not a good idea. That's not why you're together. You're together to understand each other. That is your whole goal. That's why communication is important, because people are complex and you want to understand each other so you know how to look out for each other and love each other better. The only reason in a healthy relationship that you would do conflict is to make the relationship better. So why the hell would you be defensive? Also, people reunite solely because of loneliness and jealousy. Getting back together without commitment to ongoing communication and relationship improvements is just going to make the next breakup more painful. It's important to get counseling and to get some objectivity. If you know this pattern, love, disappoint, fight, break up, miss each other, get back together, repeat. Those are basic instructions and the pattern of people who engage in on again, off again relationships. That means that you are a surfacey person who does not have empathy, compassion, or a deep type of love or care for another human being. And yet you have a sex organ that wants to be pleased. And so the problem is your sex organ is actually smarter than your brain. And so unfortunately, many people, their sex organ runs their whole life. And they want to have a relationship. They want to feel like they're not lonely. They want to have their person to go out to dinner with. They want to have their person to go to vacation with. They want to have their person to have sex with. They want to have their person to raise their kids with, but they don't want to be a deep person. And if you don't have empathy, you have no business breeding and you have no business in a relationship. If you cannot learn empathy and compassion, you have no business having a relationship. And you should be honest about that. Or get some counseling and figure it out because you never grew up. There's this thing, relationship cycling. It's predictable, and it's a repetitive cycle of breaking up, getting back together again, and it's highly dysfunctional, it's highly unstable, it's hurtful, and it's toxic. And so unhealthy models of attachment can also cause this. If you have parents that are idiots, you're probably going to be an idiot. There's also the fear of being alone. There's also the belief that things are going to change. There's also your low self-esteem, and suddenly somebody knows how to love you the way you want to be loved, but they also know how to hate you the way you don't want to be hated. And that is also a problem because people that are especially narcissists can be very charming and tell you all the great things about you. You were always the best person, but you were always the most attractive. I was always wanting to be with you. You were always the greatest. And yet you get in a relationship, you're a terrible person. You're controlling. You're mean. You're this, you're that. They do all this, bait you to come back and then push you away once they're with you. Relationship cycling is a psychological dance in which couples falls in love, they get close, they begin to disappoint each other, then they begin to fight, then they begin to find the relationship intolerable, they end the relationship, only be terrified of the loneliness that happens when they break up, and then they begin to bring it back by trying to talk again. And so we have to understand this is very, very normal human problem. They think that the problems are going to improve and that the breakup is going to change another person's behavior. And that is not going to happen. So what we have to understand is there's a lot of statistics out there that say this is a problem. And it is a problem, especially after COVID, where people can't even communicate. So people do this happenstance type of relationship where they go through things or they get to know each other's family or they go buy a dog or they go get a cat or something or they go breed and have children and they don't get married. There's a lot of people that do this weirdy relationship stuff. But the deal is they don't commit. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. You're not committing to a bunch of other people. You're not committing to a lifestyle. You're committing to a human being. And that's what it takes to be in a relationship, is a commitment to another human being. And so what we also have to understand, is that people go back and they have sex with exes and then they think it's a relationship. Well, it's not. So what you want to do is you want to examine the situation from the outside. Your relationship can look a lot different from other people's perspectives, from family members to friends to coworkers. So it's important to take a step back and look at your relationship, as sometimes we can be in love and we're not able to see the big picture. And if you're looking to see an outside perspective, ask a trusted person or a friend or a family member what they perceived in the relationship and learn from it. Get a different person's perspective can give you some ideas on what your relationship is like from the outside. And you can take that information and do what you want with it, but it would be ideal to build a relationship and improve areas of that if you're going to get back together with this person. And you also want to ask your partner to try and do different things than you did before so that you can learn and go deeper into your communication. You want to avoid the same mistakes. Look at your past. What went wrong? And avoid having the same arguments as before so you learn how to solve the issue, move forward with the relationship. Look at things from a different perspective to see a different way around the problem. One of the first steps in doing so is finding and identifying your mistakes and taking accountability for it, which in this day and age is almost impossible with these people in this life. You also want to take it slow. If you're going to get back together with someone, don't rush into it. That's probably why you got into the problem in the first place. When starting to date your ex again, try not to rush into things. Take things slow. Try to learn things about your partner that you may not have known before. And when you're going to get back together, don't force anything. Rush into feeling for each other again. So you take a month or two and see how you act around each other. Make sure you have a plan. Have goals that align with them. Make sure that you and them are going to be comfortable with the goals you're setting. You also want to be cautious, but not untrusting. That means faith-based. These are very important things to create a new dynamic to bring you both back together. All right, that's our show. I want to thank everybody for listening. I love hearing from you. You can do that on our webpage at libsyn, libsyn.com, Dr. Gary Bell's Absurd Psychology. Now remember, when watching your ex date, remember your parents told you to give your old toys to the less fortunate. Also, dating an ex is like a kidnapper coming back to take you again after you were set free. Also, dating an ex is like buying your chocolates back or your clothes back from Goodwill. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.